Hello and welcome back to Geordie Leather. This is episode 14 and we are about to start a short series of videos where we're going to be dealing with the topics of hardware. So you can fit a wide range of hardware to leather. Today's topic is eyelets, but we will be covering buckles, D-rings, O-rings, different types of catches, snap fasteners, rivets, everything. So let's get started with eyelets and we'll go through that now. Okay, eyelets. Eyelets are little rings of metal which are inserted into a hole in leather, usually crimped, which reinforces the hole to prevent it being torn by regular usage. A good example in everyday use is the shoe. A shoe has little eyelets which the laces thread through, and those reinforce the leather at that point to prevent it being torn when it's tugged with the laces. So let's have a look at some eyelets. Get my box of eyelets out. Eyelets come in a wide range of sizes. I'll show you the box on the bench cam. So looking at this kit here, they come in different sizes, different colours, and that's about it basically. So we've got the smaller sizes, 4mm, we've got silver, tin, copper, another tinny colour, brass and antique brass. But like I say, they come in a wide range of colours. I generally stick to the antique brass, nickel and other metallic colours in my work. But they're all basically the same. Well, there's two slight differences with the very small ones, the 5mm ones, for example. I'll show you one of the copper ones close up. Now if you look at this close up, it's a ring of metal. But on the small ones, cheap ones, you tend to find that they have a serrated edge, which when it's compressed spreads out on the back of the leather like a flower and flattens down. Now with the larger ones, or the better quality ones, we don't have that. We have just a flat ring of metal, but these ones use a washer which goes with that, and that slides over that shaft of metal, and the machine that's used to compress it actually rolls the metal down to press against the ring of the washer. So we'll see that in practice in a moment, but that's a general difference. So you see they come in different sizes. I've got 4mm up to 12mm here. I generally don't use the 12mm very often these days. They're for big projects like tarpaulins and that sort of thing. Generally I use mostly the 4mm, the 5.5, the 6, sometimes the 10. But let's actually get on and see how these eyelets actually are fitted. So the first thing you do before you can fit an eyelet, you have to punch a hole. Now there are various ways of punching holes in metal. This is a leatherwork channel, isn't it? Yeah. There are various ways of punching holes in leather. Now probably everybody is familiar with these things. This is a set of cheap Chinese hole punchers. Now they're not very good, I must admit, but I think that a lot of people will start out with a set like this, so I've included it in this demonstration. I bought these a while ago and they came totally blunt, wouldn't cut butter hot, so it took me quite a while to actually sharpen them and to get them in a usable condition. So if you're thinking about buying a set of these, don't bother. Pay the bit extra and buy some quality individual punches. You don't need a full set like this. You'll very rarely use the larger sizes. You'll mainly use the small 2, 3, 4, 5 sort of size punches. The bigger sizes are very rarely used, so you're best off spending your money on 2 or 3 of the smaller sizes rather than the full set of the big sizes. So I will demonstrate using this just as an example. So we'll take a piece of leather. This is ordinary veg tan, about 2mm. So to use a hole punch, it's fairly simple. You need some sort of hard surface first of all. I use my trusty anvil, which is just something, it's not expensive. It's a solid cast iron anvil which gives you a nice flat hard surface to stamp against, hammer against and so on. I made a small polyboard cover for mine which just basically sits on stops it sliding around. There's a little bit of piece of wood around the outside which holds it in position, but it's very useful. So obviously you want the poly board on because you don't want to damage the edge of your very sharp Chinese chisel. So basically you punch a hole in the leather. So with a hammer, just hold your punch vertical and give it a few. Oop, there goes the camera. Punches until it comes through. So you can take that out and that gives you a fairly reasonable hole to put your eyelet into. So let's do that next. So this is a 12mm, yes, 12mm punch. So we need a 12mm eyelet. So let's just get one of those out. You see the larger sizes, they come in two parts, the eyelet itself and a little washer. So we need both parts. Now, I should have done this the other way around. I should have done the small ones first, but never mind. We'll do the big one as we've got it here. So to set the big ones, setting, by the way, is the term used when we actually compress a eyelet, a rivet, a snap fastener. The term is called setting it. So we just insert the larger part of the eyelet into the hole with the rounded dome end on the face side of the leather, the grain side, and we turn it over and put the washer on the other side. That's on the flesh side, like so. So to compress this, you can get hand setting tools. I don't have one because I personally use one of these. For the larger eyelets, I use one of these. This is just basically a cheap press for eyelets, snap fasteners and so on. It's a fairly simple construction. Again, very cheap on eBay, Amazon. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to get yourself one. They come with different types. Well, they don't come. You can buy different types of what's called a setting die. It comes in a bottom piece and a top piece. And basically that sits into the machine and you put your rivet, not a rivet, it's an eyelet. Put your eyelet into the press like so, a bit closer, and then you just simply press down the handle, and what that does is it rolls the edge of the eyelet down and presses it against the washer, like so. So if you take that out, you can see that's now crimped that eyelet nice and tidily. So it's got a nice finished side and even the reverse side's nice and tidy. So it's a cheap tool but good investment. You can use an arbor press as I've shown you previously, but for the larger rivets I would suggest getting one of these. But we'll do some of the smaller rivets. They're not rivets, they're eyelets. We'll do some of the smaller eyelets next to demonstrate you can do this by hand. You don't need a machine. Obviously you can do the smaller ones with the machine as well, but we'll show the hand method next. So we'll put that to one side. So to punch the smaller holes, you could get out your cheap Chinese chisels, hole punches. Sorry, it's one of those days. But you'll find it a lot easier to use something like this. This is basically a rotary punch, which is hand operated. You just squeeze the handle and you see it has a range of different size punches. You can rotate the head to select the size you want. I'm going to use a 5mm rivet, so I'll put it on the biggest one. I've lost one of my tips because I've had this a long time. It's done me very well, but it needs replacing. So there you go, that clicks into place, and you can see close up as you squeeze the handle, those two bits come together and that punches out the leather. So we'll do that. So just take a piece of leather, put your pliers in, squeeze it, you'll hear a crack, a click. That means the cut has gone right through and cut the leather. But keep your grip tight and just gently twist the leather just to make sure that it has cut through properly. and then just release, and you should have a nice clean hole. So to set the smaller ones by hand, there's basically two methods. You can use what's called a hand setting tool, which just basically consists of, let me get a rivet and I'll show you. A rivet? Why am I calling them rivets? We're doing eyelets today. Eyelets today, rivets another day. So again, we're going to use a two-part rivet system. Rivet, it's not a rivet, it's an eyelet. So we've got the, where are we? Can you see those? Got the small eyelet and its corresponding washer. So like I say, you can use these. Personally, I don't like these. Setting it by hand, the principle is that you put the eyelet onto the base, you put your leather on, your washer on, and then stamp it with a hammer. I've never had much success with this particular tool, so I very rarely use it. My preference is to use a specially designed tool for setting eyelets. If you look at the tool carefully, it's the same principle. It's a squeezy handle. Where are we? There we are. One of the jaws, I'll tilt it that way, you can see, has a circular concave impression, whereas the opposite jaw has a concave impression but with a pin in the center. So what this does is this squeezes together the eyelet just as the big press did, but a more controlled hand version. So we'll do that. Where's my eyelet gone? It's run away. There it is. Okay, so same principle. Take your piece of leather, insert your eyelet so that the nice side's on the nice side of the leather. Turn it over and put your little washer on the back, covering over the exposed bit, and then you need to put this into the tool. Where are we? Here we are. So that the pin part, that's on top. Now the pin part goes into the protruding shaft hole, not the rounded end, the nice end on the back, the protruding shaft. So that goes in. So sit that in like so. Can I angle that so you can see it? So that the pin is on the top. That's going to push down into the hollow tube and compress it. So we'll just do that. So squeeze the handles. And there we go. We can see on the front we have the nice round end. On the back, that's been compressed nice and flat. It's not a particularly good version because I wasn't looking at the job, I was looking at the camera. So we'll do another one just to prove it can be done better. So we'll take another little eyelet, its washer. I'll punch another hole just to demonstrate that again. So squeeze, twist and release. So we insert the eyelet into the hole, turn it over, put the little washer on the back, and then we give that a crimp again. So and that's a lot better. So if we look at those two holes, there's a good point to make clear here. Now you see the one I've just done, that's this top one, how crisp and clean that opening is compared with the bottom one where it's slightly deformed. Now this is because the top one is a more expensive eyelet, whereas the bottom one is a cheap Chinese eyelet. I don't know why I've still got these in my box, but basically, like all things you buy, you get what you pay for. So if you're buying eyelets, rivets, snap fasteners, avoid the cheap stuff from China. It may look inviting, it's a good price, but after you've used a few of them, you'll chuck them in the bin because they really are not very good. They will do the job, but they won't do a nice finished job. They'll often be deformed eyelets, which don't look anywhere nice and can really spoil your project. So pay a little bit of extra. It's not a big difference in price, but buy from a quality, ideally, if you're in the UK, a UK supplier, I'll put a link in the description of who I use, and it pays for itself in the long run, because you're not going to be redoing the project again from scratch. If you put an eyelet in and it deforms, trying to get that eyelet out again is a real pain, so it's not worth the effort. Pay the bit extra and get good quality eyelets. So that covers eyelets. There's not a lot to eyelets really. So you punch your hole, you put your eyelet in, you either use a handheld setting tool, or if you want to go down the old-fashioned method of a stamping tool, then you can do that. Or if you've got larger rivets or a lot of riveting, if you're doing this for making money, you're making a lot of key rings or things that require eyelets a lot, then it's worth paying for one of these little things. They're not expensive, but they're very useful. By the way, when you get these, they're Chinese, like a lot of stuff is these days. They come pretty rough. I had to spend quite a bit of time sanding this down, repainting it, lubricating all of the mechanism, and I put a padded leather handle with some cross stitching just to finish it off before I could really benefit from it. So if you're prepared to put a little bit of work in to get one of these cheap presses, I think they were less than £30, not very much, but if you're batch producing things, it saves a lot of time to be able to pump and set a lot of rivets, snap fasteners and eyelets. There's other things as well I'm sure you can do with it, but that's what I use it for mainly. So that's basically it for eyelets. Okay, so that covers the topic of eyelets. Straightforward, I'm sure you'll agree. It doesn't require much in the way of tools, but it's a useful piece of hardware if you want to reinforce a hole. So thanks for watching as usual, and if you could click the like button, I'd appreciate that, and please click the subscribe button. It does help the channel a great deal if you can, and we look forward to seeing you next time. So until then, bye bye for now.